Nice. Hey, Jazz Cabbage Cafe, we made it on again. We've been doing this for a long time now. At this time, at this place, and there will be other stuff happening, but it hasn't yet. So here we are today again. But we got both Medical Monday dudes again today, which is cool. And we're going to have a guest later on, but one guest today, and looking forward to it, though. Kyle Miller, who's done a lot of political work, helped us out with the legalization campaign, now finds himself as participant in the emerging commercial cannabis industry, and he's got a place in Lowell, Michigan. And we'll talk to him about what's going on in the business and some specific stuff and how we got there and all that kind of stuff. I was just up at the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association conference, and you know, and also I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk very positively about it in a minute, but there's a component of it, along with some stuff that happened today that I'm aware of, that is just hanging out there in the air, and that is this revisionist history when it comes to what has gone on to get to where we are right now with cannabis. And the answer is thousands of people, you know, over decades. But there are some that like to maybe claim a larger stake or misdirect people into a perspective that doesn't really line up with what happened. And earlier today, somebody in one of the big corporations that are involved in the cannabis industry made a comment that Steve Linder, and we'll describe who he is in a second, you know, had a lot to do with, you know, where we are with cannabis today. And when I was up at the conference, there was a little bit of accolades to people who deserved it, but some omissions as well. And it's just kind of a weird phenomena that seems to be happening, and maybe it makes business sense or political sense.
I think, Jamie, that group that you were with typically does this. They're known for this.
They do.
They are. That group. Am I right, Rick?
Everybody wants to flatter themselves, and if they can rewrite history in a way that makes them the hero, then that's the way that they're going to do it. What I like to do is rely on press clippings and actual news reports from the time, and who were featured in those, and who was making the right moves.
I was going to say that. I mean, some of this stuff is fairly easily researchable, you know, and there is something to be said about the Linder scenario and the big business stuff. The MMFLA is a commercial program that got through a very corrupted and conservative legislature. And it was done because a few people thought they were going to be cashing in on all the revenue and splitting it up, and dollar signs in their eyes, like the Kennedys after alcohol prohibition was lifted, and wanted to get one of the very few distributorships and print their own money practically. So it is true that Steve Linder had a lot to do with getting that stuff moving, but the final outcome and the refutation of allowing an oligopoly or a small group to have complete control had nothing to do with them. In fact, we had to work against them in order to achieve that. So to give him that kind of credit is.
Let me just add to what Jamie's saying, is that in 2014, without Steve Linder's help, we already had a program for complete medical marijuana businesses to be launched. The Sheriff's Association, possibly with Steve Linder's help, submarined that on the last day. And then 2015 and 2016 session was a constant battle between the people who had constructed that program in 2014, us, and the people who wanted to recreate this entire program in a way that flattered and advantaged them, which was Steve Linder and the people that he represented. Remember the Michigan Cannabis Development Association? Remember where their lobbyists said that they were going to hijack the bills that we'd been working on all this time in order to recreate them? And then guess what? They did. They hijacked our bills. And guess who probably helped them? Steve Linder. So when you start talking about
amongst others, not just him.
Not just him. It would be wrong for me to say that. But the fact is there's a cabal of Republican lobbyists that work in Lansing, and they worked for years and years to try and undo the efforts that we were doing to make patient issues important to the legislature, to make caregivers an important part of it, and not to just discard them in a system. So when we start talking about Steve Linder and some of the things he did, he also was one of the largest voices behind the movement to almost castrate the entire legalization program. In 2018, after we passed it by a vote of the people, there's a lame duck session in the 2018 legislature, and they talked about it was very, very big in the news. They talked about cutting our law to ribbons and making sure that it was neutralized. And they never did, because it would have been incredibly unpopular for them to do it, and they wouldn't have had the vote. But Linder was part of that conversation too, urging them to destroy what we had so they could create something different.
And so now he is a part of, along with the people from Green Peak, and I can't think of the name of the group that also owns casinos and stuff like that. They had one of the very first licensed cultivation centers around Mount Morris area. Can you think of that? Well, it's one of the biggest investors, and in fact, the four of the four largest investors make up this new manufacturing lobbying group. It's association that's in Lansing, and and Steve Linder is a part of that, and they certainly have some direction that they're going in, some strategy and some goals, and it all has to do with.
I've never heard of them.
You never heard of people I'm describing? Green Peak.
Green Peak, Skymint.
They own over. I think they represent over 50% of the commercial licenses, or something very big like that.
2019, they said caregiver cannabis sucked. They had a little presentation at the Capitol building where they had all their people where.
Oh, that was them.
They vilified caregivers at a time when they represented a decent percentage of the only clientele able to buy from their stores.
Right.
Yeah.
An example of their thinking.
Yeah, dangerous, untested caregiver cannabis.
The poison.
Yep.
They're selling poison to people.
Well, they were growing stuff through the system, and it wasn't really popular, and they had.
And their product was terrible.
They were blaming the caregivers for it, but
Right.
lack of understanding how things work.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's capitalism. You grow a better plant than I grow, and you'll put me out of business.
So I'll tell you what it comes down to for me is thousands of people over decades, and we still have a lot of work to do. There's still forces out there that are angling for artificial market share and to close out individual rights because they view it as competition. And we still need to fight against that and improve conditions and make sure the original laws are implemented properly. And it's not over yet. And so, yes, we can look back and see great improvement from a few years ago, but we have a lot of work to do, and nobody should be jumping up and down, taking credit for stuff at this point. Yes, you can acknowledge work that people have done, but man, this isn't over, and conditions have a lot of room for improvement at this point.
Yep. Of course.
If you don't mind, man, respond to that and see who else is here and what they think about how we view the history of where we are now.
Well, here's a couple things I remember. There was a time when Marijuana Policy Project wanted 0 or 2 plants for home cultivation, not 12 like we got. I can remember that in 2015, we wanted to have someone other than Michael Calton introduce our dispensary bill, our local option bill, because Calton was so untrustworthy, and he introduced it the very first day of session so that we couldn't get someone else to do it. And that the Republicans at that point said, fuck you, we're not going to do anything about a dispensary bill, screw you. And then we launched MI Legalize, and then they were like, oh shit, we need to do something. And then all of a sudden they started accelerating the conversation about testing and cultivation and everything else too. So the MMFLA, I think many of us who were around at that time, is a direct reflection of the legislature's paranoia about us being successful with our MI Legalize 2016 effort. Colin MacDougall, you were around at that time. I normally would have thrown it to Deb, but I'm going to toss it to you real quick. Colin, I mean, it's tough, right? To hear people say things like what you did wasn't significant, or your share of the work isn't being respected at this point. Isn't that kind of ridiculous?
Pretty damn ridiculous. They don't know who, me and Deb and you and.
Yes, they do.
I mean,
yes, they do. What are you talking about? Yes, they do.
Certainly do.
Yes, they do.
They watched us in the news reports. They watched us in the news media. They watched us speak on their behalf for years, yourself included, Colin.
Well, I don't know. I didn't. I feel like right from the get-go, like when I started collecting signatures, and just the activists that are out there, kind of felt like sometimes it was a contest about who was like the biggest activist. Me, I know I'm the biggest activist, so
Yeah, no competition for
no
reals.
competition for real. But
You've been acknowledged formally. I know Normal.
I know.
Normal
I mean,
gave you an award one year.
yeah, but like, you also gave me like shit right after I got the award too, though. Like,
But everybody will give
Me-
you shit
me
forever.
personally?
because that's
you
what you do.
personally,
That
yeah.
was that was obviously out of endearment.
It was on like April 1st, and you were like, "Oh, you only got it because it's April Fool's Day."
Well, it was just low hanging fruit of a joke, man.
I believe you were still mispronouncing his name at that
it was
point
there.
too.
I mean, I would have done it too, but like,
Oh my God.
Yeah.
but it's everybody tries to take credit for it.
Well, Deb,
I can tell you,
you've seen a lot of accomplishments. A lot of people trying to take credit. You've been involved in a lot of different petition gathering, signature drives. Sometimes afterwards, people tried to pretend they were the only one out there collecting signatures, and
Right.
their mom came to their defense and fought with you. Yes, right. So that's always fun. So you know what it's like to have your work sometimes be disrespected, right?
Yeah, but here's the thing I'm not surprised. We've had this conversation before. This is not the first time we've discussed this. I'm not surprised because that's just how it is, and I don't really care. Whatever, And they definitely know who was there. They definitely know who did what, and whatever. I mean, what the hell? Whatever. What are you gonna do? Seriously.
Well, my activism isn't done so that I can receive
But I don't go and
accolades.
smile up in people's faces like that. I mean, you know that I don't do that. So
I'm sort of out there with my accomplishments. Berg, yep, everybody's laughing because I'm an egomaniac. Berg, what do you think, man? You've been watching this for years. You've been watching this interplay of the existing market versus the new market. Now the new market seems to be superior to the old market, and it's not necessarily better in a lot of ways. What do you think about people that should get credit for where they're at? You were just with John Sinclair the other day. Does that guy get the credit he deserves?
I mean, it seems like just throughout history, period, not even including the cannabis industry, whoever has the most money writes the history. You know what I mean? Like that's what it comes down to. All these corporate people are coming into the weed game, haven't even done anything with weed. I mean, I don't even know the dude that you're talking about.
right.
They're given all this credit for, So, I mean, especially in the US, like, I don't know. Nope. It really pisses me off. Like, especially, Jamie and you, Rick, not being mentioned and stuff when it comes to the cannabis industry in Michigan. I mean, I was with, I was for MI legalized when it was first, brought up, and I designed the first logo and everything, so it's like some Christopher Columbus shit, like he discovered America, like word, like I don't know, man. What's this guy's name again?
I forgot already.
Steve somebody.
Yeah, Linder.
Steve somebody. Fuck him.
Forgettable.
I don't know who he is either. But fuck him,
Forgettable Steve.
Sausage
Seriously.
Steve Lindberger.
But actually, he's got more money than all of us combined. The guy's
Well, yeah,
very
no, and I
influential in
mean,
Lansing. He gets around, but I mean, Roach, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a quality individual, right?
no, and I mean, I'm gonna have to side with Deb on this one. It's like you got to make your mind up what you're doing it for. Are you doing it for accolades and to be remembered as something? Do you want statues of yourself somewhere, or do you want to actually make a fucking difference? And if you're making a fucking difference, then that's your reward there. There's always going to be people to swoop in and act like they were the one who made the change, but the people know. And if you're the people's champ, all the other bullshit doesn't even matter.
Well, the one
Yeah.
thing I'll say
This
is,
is-
right, we're having a hard time right now in America because history was written by the victors, not necessarily by the people that lived it, right, Deb? I mean,
right.
can't
No,
always trust those
exactly.
people.
You can't always trust those people, and that's exactly right. Everybody knows what really came down, and you know, like I say, it's a bunch of people patting each other on the back and giving each other awards. That just always kills me. It's not the first time. It won't be the last.
Well, I guess
And the rest of us just keep on moving forward. Rick,
yeah.
really, I mean, I know you're joking your ego and stuff, but I know you deep down inside you feel the same way. Everybody knows what your accomplishments and what you did.
There's a lot of things all of us do that are midnight efforts that never get seen by anybody else. Someone calls
Yeah,
you
but
and
your shit is seen everywhere. Everybody
Bailey
sees your
referred
shit.
Bailey referred to them collectively as the Rick Thompsons.
This is what I'm saying.
All
You're
thorns
everywhere
that
anyway.
Rick
So
represents.
yeah.
Well, gee.
And when we were up in Northport and he tried to argue with us, Rick fucked him up there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But
I'm
that's beside
sure.
the point. It's true. Like we've done a lot of stuff. It's taken so much though to move this, and for somebody to kind of like single themselves out without that bigger picture or recognition of that, it's a put off. Just kind
Look
of
at Edison.
Here's the thing too, as a internet.
Well, it's not uncommon. Both you guys are right, Berg and Roeche, obviously, but this in the here and now is fucked up.
Well, as an internet publisher, and I have a website, many websites, and I do all this stuff. One of the things you're constantly told is to self-promote. The only way that you're going to be able to be successful with the websites that you have and the different things you do, like the Social Revolution and the Compassion Chronicles that I built, all these years, you have to self-promote. That's what you got to do. And sometimes people look at the self-promotion that you do in order to make business successful, and they confuse it with the self-promotion you do to make yourself feel important. So,
None of us inferred that.
No, it's just a general observation.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, yeah.
I'm not defending myself because, man, I eat up all that criticism. More. Give me more.
I know it makes you a stronger man, right?
It does. But I guess there's so many people out there that gave so much. What I really hate is when people try to singularize the accomplishment. I am the fill in the blank, right? No. Moms with their babies that took them to the legislature to speak out about this, or people who were afraid but yet let themselves be interviewed so that their horrible story of police oppression could be told, and people that revealed their cannabis use maybe in a way that could have affected their employment just because they wanted to inspire others to be able to try something different. So those are all the heroes of the movement. Some of us are faces, but we're the fascia. We're that thin veneer on the top of the really solid desk, and that was it. There's a lot of people whose effort went into making us where we're at right now. And unfortunately, a lot of those people had horrible stories, and that's what motivated people to change, is the terrible, horrible stories of mistreatment.
Yeah.
Remember when the cops from Detroit raided McShane and Hazel Park in Ferndale?
It's very close to where I live, and we were holding a meeting over at Andrew's house, like a planning meeting on when we were going to start the petition drives and blah blah blah. And Michael comes in with what's the other dude he was with? Mikey V, is that the guy's name?
That's it, yes.
Mikey V. Okay, so they come in and they're freaking out because they had gotten raided that day. They were in bed, they were sleeping. Fucking cops just burst in. It was rogue fucking cops burst in, cleaned out their grow, roughed them up, took their cash and left. No warrants, nothing. They called Ferndale police and said, look, fucking cops just came through our front door. What the fuck? No warrants. And Ferndale police said, we don't know anything about it. It was rogue Detroit cops, and years later, they won a lawsuit against those cops.
Yeah.
Yeah, the day it happened, I could probably even tell you, it was so crazy.
And it's incidents like that, and a million others just like that never get.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I personally know people that were caregivers in Detroit that were raided with no fucking. They took
everything. And they didn't arrest them, right?
They loaded it into the own vehicle and drove off with it.
like a
That's what they
minivan.
did with-
They pull up with a minivan behind the trooper car.
That's what
Yes.
they did to Mike. That's what they
No.
did to Mike. That's what
No,
they
I'm
did.
talking
And
about the person who was being raided's car.
Oh,
They
that-
took
what
all
I'm
their
talking
shit,
about.
put it in
No,
their
that's
own
what I mean.
vehicle, and drove
Yes.
off with it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's what happened to Michael. And these were Detroit cops that came across 8 Mile because we're just on the other side of 8 Mile. His house they were renting was just on the other side of 8 Mile. Came across fucking 8 Mile, just rogue fucking cops.
So that
First
renegade
thing,
group
fucking-
of Detroit cops was ultimately
Yeah.
investigated by the feds. I was
Yes.
just on a call for a second. One of them committed
Yeah.
suicide before
One
they
of
were
them killed
actually
himself.
taken
And
through the system.
Yeah.
And
the
all they
other
were a
three
bunch of
were
thugs, and
guilty.
they did shit like they looked around for a truck or a van that just wasn't being used by anybody else that weekend or whatever, and they commandeered it and went and used it for these rogue raids. And
right.
Yeah.
So when we talk
He's-
about, who's responsible for the successes of where we're at, I mean, there's a couple of us that are visible, but man, those are the people that really made it.
Wow, that was crazy shit.
You know, who we haven't talked about in a long
420,
time?
just for informational purposes. Go ahead, Rick.
420, Bob Redden. We haven't talked about Bob Redden for a long time.
And he hasn't been on any show for a little while either, so it's probably time that we check in with him. That's a good point.
Yep, widely recognized as probably the first case in Michigan
Second.
history,
Yeah.
first or second after the medical marijuana law passed. Before the rules became effective in April of 2009, he was arrested for engaging in what was already legal behavior. They just hadn't published the rules yet.
Yeah, and the district court judge dismissed the case based on the affirmative defense, and I think Matt Abel might have been his lawyer at the moment at that time. Then Oakland County decided they were going to challenge it and create case law, and Jessica Cooper began her crusade against us, reminding people she just lost in the primary to a progressive.
Yes. That was great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's 10, 12 years later or whatever, but
Well,
that's it happened.
still.
Right.
I
Welcome,
know though,
Shelley.
but I'm still a cop,
I know. Well, we're just Shelley. By the way, welcome. We're just talking about heroes of the movement and how sometimes the people that seek recognition all aren't really the ones that built the movement. The movement was built by all of the negative law enforcement encounters and all of the problems that people had on their way to getting here, and then of course all of the millions of voices that carried petitions or spoke the truth to power in their local community meetings in order to move the needle of acceptance to where it was at. I mean, shit. That's really where the success lies, is in the action of the millions of Michiganders that work towards it, not necessarily the visible efforts of a few.
Yeah, and every conversation of someone just going like, hey, why do you think this way? Or this isn't fair, or you should try this, or,
So, Shelley, you were just working with an organization not too long ago. And did that kind of dynamic take place there, where you got different people's, version of some of the back history on how some achievements were made?
Good question.
I don't know. No, I was more focused on just getting to know new businesses, and I think a big eye-opener for me, would be new money coming in that just sees it as any old business. Like, oh, I'm going to jump in this right now without really having a grasp of all that's happened so far.
Problem that we discussed at the beginning of the show, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, but I just keep thinking about, like, I keep reporting back from South Carolina because that's where I'm from. And right now the laws there's hemp being grown, so much hemp, no THC, and my family lives on a big farm. So every time I go over the last probably 8 years, I've been like dripping. It's like this incessant drip marketing campaign. A little story here, a little bit. I was just home. I was just in South Carolina this past weekend, and my mom tried cannabis for the first time. She's 76 years old. And I just thought how awesome to finally be having this conversation in 2020. She's 76 years old, when really they could grow they could grow so much weed there. And she was on this,
Therapy, just growing it.
she was on this painkiller for her sciatica. And I asked her if she was open-minded to it before I went home, and I brought little CBD tinctures, and I brought gummies, and I brought, CBD cigarettes, and I brought as much home as I could. And she was open. She tried everything. She did not take her Neurontin the whole time I was there. And so the fact that we can even talk about it seems like an epic step forward, even though South Carolina is probably, several things have been proposed as far as I understand, but nothing has been adopted for medical or rec. So still a ways to go that way, but it feels like huge steps in my mind.
All right.
Just
Well, that's an
talking about
excellent testimonial.
Yeah.
Glad
The
to
end
hear.
of the war. The end of the war on drugs is a million small conversations.
Yeah, that's what I always think about, is those millions of small conversations. So somebody going, oh, I've never heard of somebody using it with their kids, and you realize you have an open door to introduce them to the Charlotte Fiji story, or introduce them to, just once the door's open and they have a need, then
Right.
it's a million of those conversations. Exactly.
Many of us have either known of others or participated in the various things that include just showing up for court support for some people, talking to local governments and local officials about stuff, going to state committee, legislator committee hearings on issues, holding events, being interviewed, getting information out any way possible, having these types of shows.
Mhm.
And and sometimes it's just simply showing up in support of all of that, and in numbers. I think everybody that shows up at Hash Bash, and when there's a year we look out and there's 8,000 or 10,000 people, man, that's just a strong statement. And then one day, all those people helped out.
One of the things I've noticed in the last few weeks, just because I was with the MICIA and I did learn a lot there, but I've understood, I've worked at the front desk at a shop. I've coached behind the scenes. A lot of things, but growing and working in a farm is definitely my favorite. And I think another thing I've learned in the last few months about the movement is any chance you can to normalize something. Like if somebody goes let's go out here and smoke, they don't want their kids to know, they don't want their wife to know, and you're like, you know what, you got to stop that. Every time
I agree.
Protect somebody from it, you're making yourself a criminal in a state where we've already decided,
Right.
You're perpetuating something.
And oftentimes there's no issue at all with the parent and the kid, and seeing alcohol use, or even grabbing a few sips or having their own beer or something like that. I mean, when I was a kid, I was allowed to have a beer, a glass of wine or whatever, so.
Yeah.
And
so I think normalizing.
One time I was up north, and I was at my brother's house, and we were watching. This is long enough ago that the Wings were in the playoffs, and we're watching a Wings game, and people are yelling at the TV screen, profanity and stuff like that, smoking cigarettes, drinking beers and other drinks and stuff like that. And Grandma brings a couple kids around the corner and says, "Are any of you guys smoking any of that funny stuff?" So the concern in the midst of all that behavior was that anybody had any cannabis up. So,
Yeah.
Have to change, and it's part of the
booze, the violence, the profanity, but it was the wacky tobacco that was the biggest concern. I know.
Have friends now that are like that with their kids. It's got to be all secretive with me, or if we're going to go out and smoke one or whatever. But lines flowing, no problem. But it's a matter of time. It's a return on the corner.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're talking to either, because that person could turn out to be very influential. One of the last MICBD conferences I had, Director Brisboe from the Marijuana Regulatory Agency spoke, and he opened up his speech by saying, I've never told Rick this story, but I attended one of his conferences before I was anybody, that you would recognize, when I was just an employee at Lara, because I'd heard that those conferences were the tops. He says, so I listened to everything that everybody had to say, and I listened to people complain about a lot of stuff that we weren't actually even doing at that point. And then he became the director of the MRA. And now that pipeline, that information pipeline, that friendship, that trust exists today. I can write a letter to the director and he responds back to me within 24 hours almost always. So
Yeah. So were you guys up in Shanty Creek?
Jamie was.
Did you guys go to the meeting? You did? Okay.
Yeah, I was up there and it was pretty cool. I was impressed by a few different things. I attended the tea party with Q, with Antoinette.
Oh yeah, with Gigi,
And
Chef Gigi.
Gigi's the
Cannabis
chef,
chef.
right? Yes,
She's
and
from
then
Detroit.
she's collaborating now with Q, and there's going to be a line of stuff coming out, and she has a lot of pre-orders for it. And it sounds like a pretty cool, exciting project. I'm sure
Oh yeah. She's supposed to do a Reeds and Weeds. We've been trying to plan it for like 4 months. 4
Cool.
months.
Well,
She picked the book. She picked the guests. We're and it just keeps getting like rearranged, and she got stung by something in her face.
I'm sure she'll come around to it. But she
I
had these. The part of the whole presentation was having these certain foods that have, certain essence and tea of certain essence, and to be pairing with the cannabis. That was
It's
really
awesome.
interesting, kind of a cool way to spend the afternoon and like that. And so I thought that was pretty cool. Meanwhile, there was a golf tournament going on. I'm not against golf. I've kind of grew up in that world a little bit, but I don't get into it. I don't have a passion for it or anything like that. I'd much rather be at the tea party smoking joints. And
Yeah, the tea party was nice. I didn't do it
and-
there, but I did it in Michigan. Or,
right,
earlier
she
last year.
seems to do them. Yeah, has done a few around in it. And
Yeah.
so if somebody hears about that one, you should definitely do it. And then there were a bunch of presentations. Nothing particularly horrible. A little bit of that me stuff in a few of them that we've been discussing here today. Some of the companies that
What
just
is the me stuff?
Well, exactly we were describing and you brought up, and then somebody just comes in kind of late, kind of buys their way in, gets going, and becomes part of discussion
and
about,
they're like,
their involvement
Yes.
is all about, and then I did that, and then I did this, and then I did this, and so there was some of that. Whatever, that's probably part of the process for some people. But there was a presentation
right.
that was called Corporate Responsibility, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty down to earth and straightforward and powerful, I thought. And it was about respecting individuals' rights, being diverse, social equity, and the
Oh, Anna, was Anna on that panel?
Anna was,
Gamolka?
Anna Minoka was, Lisa Conine was.
Oh yeah,
They had a couple of women, I don't remember their name, but they were also, Potts, the one who has
Robin Potts. Ooh, those girls.
She
That's
was on it.
great.
And then
panel.
there's another woman whose
Great
name I can't remember, but she was probably the strongest of the speakers anyway, and everybody was great, but she had a great message, and that was that stood out as a really nice part of the whole weekend of the festival.
One of the things I guess one of the things I realized when I did work for the MICIA was if they, and I understand it's because they don't know me, so they don't know if I'm there asking a bunch of questions for good or ill. It's just hard to build trust in this industry sometimes. And but the people who were just like, we don't need an organization like that, like who just didn't see, like, we have to have an organization like this or laws are going to get made that will suck.
They had
gotta stay locked in on that.
Yep. They had a few lawmakers there, including Yusuf Rabi. It was interesting to hear from. I wanted to talk to them a little bit more, especially with the issues with the cannabis expungement bill. Representative Rabi did give a really impassioned speech similar to the point of the corporate responsibility presentation, of the obligation of the industry to also stand up for individual rights and to have a voice in helping to get people out of jail and their records expunged. And the lawmakers were there to get support of their expungement bills. But it's a good time to mention that those expungement bills are good. They are a move forward. The cannabis expungement bill is purported to be something that would allow those who have been convicted for activity that's legal now to get expungement. And people can grow or manufacture, people can transfer, deliver, people can possess, people can use, but it only really allows expungement for possession and use. So our position is that they should add the other components so that it's covering the ground of of what that is. And there might be a time we ask people for help to contact their senators to ask for that. I just wanted to throw that in because that was kind of part of the meeting, but that other element was not necessarily included. The House would like to see the bills just go through as they are, and then work on it with hopefully with a more favorable composition of lawmakers in the next session and improve on some things. I just think it's logical and rational now to put some pressure on them to get them to change. I doubt that they will, but to at least expose that element, I think it makes sense to everybody when they hear the issue.
I
Well,
think we've been joined by Kyle Miller and Ray Reyes now.
Hey
I'm not
guys.
sure. Can you guys
What's up,
hear us?
fellas? What's
Hey.
up?
Ray. Kyle, are you on?
Oh, son of a bitch.
Hey, Kyle.
Got a bad connection.
You got a bad connection.
Ray's might gonna try to come back in. It's all right. Look out
Here we
for
go.
it. Ray's joined
Here
us.
we go.
Cool. I know Ray was on planting green trees the other night too. I was able to get on when I was up at the conference for about 5 minutes or so, but I think Ray was coming on then. So
We had a good time
you're
here.
about ready to say something, and then we'll see what's up with Ray, and hopefully Kyle gets back in.
My signal is really bad. Everybody's freezing on me. It's got to be me.
Send a different one.
We're working. So anyway,
Well,
go
I
ahead,
mean, as we're talking about this while we're waiting for Ray and Kyle to hook up, we do have a nice network of podcasts going on here in Michigan. We've got Monday with the Medical Mondays. Berg and Roeche are with us right now. That's 9 p.m. Catch that on YouTube, or they also broadcast on Facebook Live, I believe. Of course, Tuesday is our show. Wednesdays, we've got the 420 Post I do with Mike Brennan every other week. Also, Grow Green's got a show every
Isn't
Wednesday.
it called Secret Garden or something like?
I believe it is the Secret Garden.
Yeah.
That's their show.
It's pretty good. It's well produced, and Tony and PJ are knowledgeable, and they have great people around there.
Oh, and the setup, the crew they've got there is just first class. The setup at Grow Green is just amazing, and the whole back room, they can enough room for people to move around. Great mics. It is really they've created a studio back there out of a conference room that really works. So, and all the time.
Smoking rope, the smoking rope with Ryan Basor.
Fridays, half an hour show, audio
We've
only.
been talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so there's just a huge network of
Tomorrow.
ways we can hook up. Ray, what have you got going on, man? By the
Tomorrow
way,
on Reeds and Weeds. Oh,
no, let's talk about Reeds and Weeds before I talk about Ray's amazing facial erection.
A little Fu Manchu action there, man.
yeah. I was just gonna say I'm partnering with the Michigan Psychedelic Society tomorrow. They recommended the book, The Fellowship of the River. So Jim will be on that show. Evan will probably be on. And if you haven't read The Fellowship of the
Kyle,
River, I
turn your
think
phone
you'll
the other
love
way.
it in the same way that you loved Smoke Signals. It's like really amazing case studies of profound healing through ayahuasca and other kind of master plants. And it's just so well done. So it completely changed what I thought I knew about ayahuasca healing ceremonies. And so, yeah, Fellowship of the River is what we're talking about tomorrow with Michigan Psychedelic Society.
That should be a very cool one.
What time and how
That'll be
can
cool.
people catch that, Shelley? What time?
We'll record it from 4 to 6. So it'll be on CRB. And then it'll probably be out in the next 2 weeks. But CRB, I think we've been live streaming it. So my computer got damaged by TSA. So the computer that I just got. So we might not be live streaming it now that I think about it right now. So that's a bummer, but it's a great book. Highly recommend the book.
All right. Seems like Kyle made it on. Here he is trying again, but we had a nice shot. You could see, there you go. Hey, all right, man. We'll get to you in a second. Ray,
He's got legs. Woo!
Ray, Fu Manchusican. See you, Joe.
Knows how to use them. Hey, what's up, y'all?
What's up, man?
Yeah. Just yeah. Days are flying by kind of quick. Here we go.
Ray,
Just,
that's nice. got an outdoor setting to broadcast from. That's cool.
It's his backyard, man, which is a very cool spot.
The chicken coop. It's pretty peaceful back here.
Yeah.
Like there are some real exotic plants that are back here that you would normally not find in Redwood, Michigan. For example, here's a fancy ass tree. See if you can recognize this one, Rick. You know your trees. Yeah,
Get me
I think it's
closer with the leaves.
I believe it's a Japanese maple.
Oh yeah, there you
That's what
go.
it looks like. Yeah, it is.
With the cannabis fingerlings, yes.
Yep.
That's what it
I
is.
was on mute. I said Japanese maple.
Very
Colin,
good.
Colin
You were
actually
right,
won.
you were right.
In case it was in question, Colin actually won that one.
I tell you, it's a nice tree and all, but it doesn't get you high for shit.
You got to dry out the leaves a little bit longer, cure them a little bit. And it'll work.
Maybe if you're Japanese, it works. I don't know.
Oh, that might be it. I'm trying to get Japanese.
So,
Japanese.
Through
Kyle
blood
does not look-
infusions, or how are you trying to get Japanese? I'm not sure.
More like Chinese. Hi.
Okay.
So Kyle does not look amused down in the corner here.
Kyle Stoic. Kyle, welcome to Jazz Cabbage Cafe, Mr. Kyle Miller. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm a longtime fan. My buddy Michael Fisher was just on a couple weeks ago. Told me how much he loved it. I had to get on here.
Nice.
Yeah, in fact, I would like to have Mike Fisher back on. That was a really good show. A lot of people had a lot of questions, and I'm sure there's more to go. That's a good one.
Yeah, he's a brilliant cannabis mind for sure.
So we were discussing you a little bit at the beginning of the show. You know, your story is pretty cool. I mean, the headlines anyway. I'm sure there was
cool. Thanks, man.
More to it leading up to where you are now, and it included like how politically on the campaign, you know, and an integral part of the whole operation and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my background prior to cannabis had been in the legislative side. I worked at the Capitol as a staffer for a couple of years, and then around the time that the second movement for MI Legalized had come together, I had spoke to Jeff Hank, and you know, they were looking for some people with campaign experience to do some organizing. Knew Sam Pernick a little bit from prior to that, from Democratic stuff, and had heard of Nick, but didn't really know him. And we kind of all got together in the same room and felt like we were a crew that could put together 265,000 signatures. So we, you know, kind of hit the ground from there. I used that time to start building a network, trying to meet everybody from grassroots organizer up to maybe bigger players, somebody who would eventually become a cannabis business owner. And, you know, beyond that, once the election was over, I kind of used that same Rolodex to continue to develop contacts with Sensi magazine and with Cannabis Connection, and then started a Class A grow called Easton Craft Cultivation. That's in Ionia. We're in our first round of flower right now. So yeah, real excited.
Kyle, that's an overview, but there's a lot more that went on to it. We talked earlier today about people that necessarily didn't participate to a great degree in the cannabis movement, sort of taking a victory lap and patting themselves on the back with some accolades. There were a lot of days when you were up in that office with GMA and with Colin and with other people, doing the nitty gritty work of counting signatures, validating petitions, and big table, paper spread all over. Yes.
Yeah, it was a grind, man.
I remember the day up at the office, I think you, Sam, Colin, Nick, maybe others, the day when we first got the largest bulk of the petitions to start handing out for signatures.
Yeah, I just remember being overwhelmed with how many boxes there were. I had worked on a lot of campaigns, mostly smaller state house or state senate, never a ballot a campaign of that size. And I remember just being overwhelmed by the boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes, you know, every single county, and just wild, man.
I remember like maps of like the state and like just all these like lists that I had to call through. And also I remember going with Kyle up north to the UP.
Yeah, that was
Last
one of
week
my
we had,
favorite highlights of it.
Yeah, and last week we had Penny on, so
And we did stop and see her.
yep.
So what's going on with Med's Cafe?
Yes, so Cabbage Cafe, my buddy Michael Atkins and my buddy Scott Schroeder, they are both from the Rogers City area originally. That's why their first store started up there in Rogers City, one of the first that far north, I guess you could say, as far as Med and Rec. Michael lives in Ada, just outside of Grand Rapids, and so he's worked throughout the Grand Rapids area for the past 10 years or so doing marketing and real estate stuff. And you know, the opportunity for a family video building became available in Lowell, and with them already operating in Rogers City, it was kind of a unique position for Michigan because Lowell is an AU only city, and so you have to piggyback off a previous license for somewhere else.
We lost
Up a
you.
little bit. Freezing up.
That position,
There he is.
piggyback a pre into. You still there?
Yeah.
We can
Yeah, you
hear
just came back on, man.
Kyle, you were explaining
Well,
about how Rogers City is an adult use only.
Yes.
And you had to use the
Lowell is
previous.
unusual.
Oh man.
Lowell's an AU only city,
There you go.
and so they. Is it breaking
Yeah,
again?
no, you're good, man. You're good right now.
Is it breaking out again? Are we
No,
good?
you're good right now.
Now you're back.
Awesome, man. Sweet. Cool. Cool. Perfect. So they piggybacked off of the license from up north. We're able to be the first AU store in Kent County. And I've, my role there, strategic relations director. I do all their wholesaling, kind of helping them with some marketing and branding, build their brand and hopefully, you know, can
Yeah.
September,
All right, we're losing.
and
Sorry, folks.
September what?
Okay.
I don't think that helped, Colin, but you know.
I know.
Don't blame it on Colin.
I'm not. I'm just teasing a little bit. That's all.
Don't do that, Rick.
I like it. It's fun.
I can mute you at any time, Rick.
Yeah, Colin, if you would fix this, please.
It's
We
like,
would all
I have
appreciate
the
it.
power.
Dun dun
I
dun.
don't have that power. I just have the
To be
power
clear,
mute.
I'm gonna bring up something with Kyle here when we can finally communicate again. He is not the problem. He is not the person who caused the issue.
No, it's probably. I don't know.
Remember that. Here
It's
he
always
is.
the Mexican. It's always the Mexican.
my back.
Might be Ray's fault, possibly. Keep
Ready?
that-
My bad. Yeah, it's my bad.
What problem? I couldn't hear for a second. What? He's not the problem. What do you mean?
He is not the problem. Are you there, Kyle?
With the connection. I'm here.
All right, there you go.
I'm here. I can hear
Hey,
you guys loud and clear.
So,
I can hear you guys loud and clear the whole
the
time.
Meds Cafe was one of the stores that the infamous licked joints had to be recalled from, isn't it?
That's true. True, yes. From
What a
Hyman
weird
Cannabis.
situation that is. I mean, they announced it in the paper. That's why I know. But what a weird situation.
No, yep, that's fine. And one of the we did have the benefit though of receiving a very small amount of them, and so it wasn't you know, something we had spent, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on something. It was a very small limited run, and thankfully there were no health complications with anybody or anything to be overwhelmingly concerned.
Was the person who was accused of doing it tested and then those results given to the people who were exposed to it? I guess we lost him again.
Jamie, I think what you're asking is, was
I'm
that
not
person
certain
tested
of
for COVID?
that.
Yeah,
That
was the
person
liquor
was
was the
tested.
liquor tested for COVID?
The
Liquor.
liquor.
You're.
I believe he was.
Are we sure it's a he? Okay.
Was it
In
only
my
one
mind, I was
liquor?
thinking maybe not. You know.
I
Sure.
think it might be.
That's unfair for me
I
to
think that was
assume.
reported. That part was reported, but I couldn't
Damn
confirm.
it.
Was there multiple
Another
liquors?
dream dies.
Unfair for me to assume. You're right.
I think one liquor was described in the article I read.
One? Are you sure it was just one liquor?
Well, it was one. Well, I mean, unless the
One liquor.
investigation eventually revealed more. I believe there was a transportation company that was dropping stuff off, and they saw
And they were licking them too.
saw somebody
Two
licking the
chicks,
joint.
one lick. I mean, that's all.
They saw somebody doing what I just did with the joint, but
Everybody-
except for smoking it themselves, they put it out for commercial sale. That was a problem, so they reported it,
So,
and here we are.
the story we heard as well.
Can I ask a question?
Jamie.
I just have a little question, if I may.
Rude.
So, Kyle, when you said that it was a small batch and not really a large investment, does that mean that it was a limited number, or that you got a bunch for cheap? Like, how large was the investment?
No, it was a red hippie on Instagram, basically. So for that does
Hey, man.
some of the others that are from
Okay.
1,500 to 2,000.
Kyle, it's a really bad connection right now, man.
Bummer.
Is there another area of your home you could go to where we could maybe get better reception?
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything there.
Drive to Jamie's house or something?
But I am excited to see that he had an answer right away, though. So I really want to hear it.
Or is there anything in your house that you can turn off the Wi-Fi of?
How about now?
That's better. We have you audio but not video, but that's cool.
Now
You're still cutting in and out.
Yeah, we're still losing you, big man. No. I'm curious to know if anybody actually returned a pre-roll
There
joint.
you go.
Frozen again.
It's there.
Outside? It's like outside.
Fuck.
Reminds me of the good old days when every joint I ever smoked had been licked by someone. Every single one.
Right.
Through all time.
Lit by someone you know.
Sometimes a total stranger.
Touched with their grubby, unwashed hands and then licked with their unbrushed tongue. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And we smoked that sucker up and was glad for it.
Yep. Sometimes even little remnants of Doritos and shit on there.
Bonus. Now that's cool.
Yum.
You know, although the Cheetos, you get the Cheetos powder on your fingers, I bet,
See me at all or hear me or anything?
Yeah, Kyle, give it a try.
Yes.
That's a violation, man. It's a violation.
Yeah, you can hear me? See me now?
Kyle, we can hear you. Give it a shot.
Is that
So what's going on with the spit, man?
Oh man.
Was
So
it
what
a-
I was saying is we only got 60 individuals.
Only 60. I wonder, Kyle. Yeah, Kyle, did you have anybody return purchased but unused pre-rolls based on the recall?
We turn and that joints. We sold them all in a day or in a day or two. And then it didn't happen until it's gone out of our shop for a while.
Yeah, so those pre-rolls were already burned to a crisp before the recall even was announced.
It sounds like they only had a few of them. They all sold out.
60, yeah.
Luckily, nobody got sick. I mean, that's what I was wondering. It seems like the
Absolutely.
information on the list is prudent for those who consumed it to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there you go. I didn't want to bring that up for any weird reasons. It was part of the, public information, and it's been a weird story. So there's some interest there, and made it clear you
Yeah.
have to do with it, But the regulator
Absolutely.
caught something, because of the system.
Yeah.
They have like a hotline, snitch line for stuff like that, and that's how it got uncovered.
Mhm.
And they asked for the video footage and confirmed it.
Yeah.
Activity has to be under video surveillance.
Yeah. Yep.
So Class A license, very uncommon, Kyle. How do you find
Yeah.
competition? How do you find it to be in the system when you're only growing 500 plants?
We'll find out. For the first time right now. So
You're not coming
we are
through.
going to do things to the side. Try to spend maybe a little. Fuck, man.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Can you
Connect.
hear me at all?
Yeah,
Now
I
we
can
hear
hear
you.
you now.
Try and turn off your video
So
and
what
just
I
do
was
audio.
Sure. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
It was at first. It's kind of getting garbled again, man.
You
Yeah,
know, the was for a Class A license to exist.
You don't hear about too many of them, which is true. Which of course is why Rick's saying, "How's it going?" And Kyle's trying to answer, but the connection isn't that awesome at the moment.
Oh, go for it. We can hear you now. Is that Kyle talking about a Class A
Can you?
license? Can you hear us, Kyle? Yeah,
I can hear you loud
don't
and
mess
clear.
with the video.
There you go.
just
There you go,
tell
Kyle. Keep
us.
going
Sure.
right now.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
So, it,
Oh no.
He's pulling a Rick.
you know, at a
Is that what it's called?
God damn it. Pulling a
Oh
Rick.
man.
Oh,
When it
even
work- when
Kyle
it-
knows
when
what
it-
pulling a Rick means. No,
When it works, get right to the information, man, because
don't say that.
it's out invariably.
It's like when he finishes a sentence, it starts to like cut off.
So, Kyle, when you can answer it on top of your 100 plant question to Rick, is it something that you're keeping limited to one strain or two strains?
Right now we have 4.
Just curious. I can imagine somebody going for a niche and having.
Right now, and it and vegetable. We're kind of,
Just getting started, so you can always.
we're kind of doing some time, but we, just flower down at the beginning of September, maybe or 2 weeks or so, another flower room that the
It's really not coming through that well, man.
Kyle, I really hate to say it, my friend,
early
but
and them both healthy, and
we should probably just end this segment, Kyle, because we really can't understand
But
anything you're saying.
Keep trying to come back in with a
Yeah,
better
I'm gonna
connection.
I'm gonna email you the link. Maybe if you open it through your email, it'll come up different.
Cool.
Just try to reconnect,
Cool.
man. Keep on trying to come back in because I want to hear about this stuff, but it's just not working out. Roach was obviously enjoying it, but everybody else was slightly irritated. So I think we should.
I'll tell you, here's something we should talk about. It was a brand new item in the news just this last couple of days. A Native American group from the Sault Ste. Marie area has decided that they are going to start their own cannabis industry, and that they don't need to play by Michigan's goddamn rules, and they don't need to pay no Michigan goddamn tax, and they don't need to have any Michigan goddamn limitations, because they are a sovereign nation. Now, as I read through this, they have petitioned the government for 1 full year to enter into a compact with them in order to enable them to do this through normal means, the same way that they have a compact with them about casino gambling and about other things too. But the state of Michigan refused to enter into an agreement or a discussion with the tribe about this. So after a year of frustration, they said, screw you, we're going to do our own thing. So this is not just a group that decided to break loose and say, screw you, we're going to do this. They actually tried to go through the regular process and were stymied.
With the state and the federal government?
Just the state. Because
they tried to deal with the state? Okay.
That's how they set up the
there's a conflict possibly also with the federal government and just doing that too, but they're probably ready for that challenge. That's fine.
But if the state of Michigan can license businesses off of Indian land, they theoretically might be able to license businesses on Indian land. So I think they wanted to enter into some kind of an agreement there, and the state was just never interested. So they said, forget it. And I think they're going to win their case, man, because I think they're right.
They can adopt like what the state
That would be awesome.
I believe, but they're taking this a step further and saying, we're just going to do it our own way. That's the cool, interesting part of the story.
Here's the other thing, Jamie.
All for it. For it.
This particular tribe has properties in the Lower Peninsula too, and other places as well. As a tribal unit, they own several different places. So they could literally have, if they get permission to do it in the Sioux, they could take it to all their different places and bring competition to Michigan's regulated market onto Indian reservations all across the state.
They don't have to have the same type of costs and stuff associated with our system that didn't really start off as smooth and as efficient, as functional as it possibly could have, and it should have an advantage in some ways, depending on how they choose to go about it.
Well, an advantage in not having to go through an administrative approval process because you're all tribal, so you just launch. You don't need to have
big licensing fees and all the extra inspections, and unnecessary restrictions and prohibitions, and lots of costly stupid shit.
Transport. They could get rid of all of those things that are potential cost inhibitors, and just really streamline the process, make a lot of profit, and have a much less expensive version.
Be a great model for what the state should adopt. Be really competitive and force the state to have to open up because they can't compete.
I can completely understand that. I do, and I agree. It looks like they could potentially have a parallel market here within the state, which is something that I know that in-state business owners probably are not going to like. But I just don't see a pathway for the state of Michigan to say we are going to obstruct what you're going to do on tribal lands. I don't know how the.
I think it would be the federal managers that would try to be the ones that would have something to say about that.
Could be
more than our state, but I don't know.
But it's a curious story, and I love to hear the way that the rules are being utilized to benefit Indigenous persons instead of what we've heard as decades of the rules being used to disadvantage Indigenous persons. If finally there's a chance for them to say, hey man, you guys made these rules, we're just following your own stupid ass rules, and they just happen to work out in our advantage this way. Beautiful. Well,
they're kind of like saying, instead of like just doing what we're doing, they're making it more broad and liberal, it seems like, and cutting out a lot of the stupid shit. That's kind of what I really like about this.
Well, and a lot of that's potential because they're just talking about it right now, but it seems like based on the conversations and based on common sense, they would eliminate some of the things that are nonsensical in our program. So, but there's no requirement on a federal level for testing standards or anything else, so there's no mandate or any of that.
Well, I'm thinking about a little bit of news too. There was and I wish I had the details in front of me, but just since I'm thinking about it, there was a request by the DEA to dismiss a case for cannabis on the controlled substance list federally, and the judge denied the DEA's motion for dismissal. So that one moves on again.
The backstory on that is that there've been several moves over the years to strike cannabis from the list of scheduled of controlled substances because certainly it doesn't belong on Schedule 1, and we think it belongs on Schedule None, completely off that list. The DEA has routinely struck down any of these efforts by people to make these changes through the courts because the DEA says they're the only arbiter of that particular list. And the courts in Jamie's example finally said, after all these times they agreed with the DEA, they finally said, no, this is wrong. We need to let this go through. There's another story that came up recently, Delta 8 THC. Many of you are familiar with this. Delta 8 is a derivative of cannabis or hemp. It has certain properties. It has a lot of the different terpenes and flavonoids that we have with regular cannabis. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, is considering classifying Delta 8 as a cannabis concentrate as opposed to a hemp concentrate. What essentially they're saying is that we can't tell the difference between Delta 8 originating from hemp and Delta 8 originating from cannabis plants. So we're going to just call all Delta 8 cannabis, and you can't use any of it until we make a federal change. This represents a change for the hemp industry because there are people who are successfully marketing Delta 8 as a food supplement, as a health product right now. So this is an arbitrary decision that seems contrary to the hemp laws that are nationally affected.
Doesn't that strategy sound similar to the issues with the Michigan State Police lab that Michael Comorn uncovered and challenged years ago, in which somebody would get would have concentrate, and they would say, we can't tell if this was manufactured from a natural plant or if it was synthetically made. The laws were against synthetic at the time.
So that allowed cops to be able to charge people.
They use it as a basis for
concentrates.
felonies. They charge felonies based on that.
Yeah, and the lab said, hey,
there's no law there. Yeah.
And the Prosecuting Attorneys Association said, look, this is how we want you to report this. And the lab said, okay, sounds good to me. So the two of them colluded to be able to make it easier to put people in jail. And we fought against that, and it was exposed. Comorn Law, Rudoy, some of the other people that worked on that case, and they successfully brought it to light. They made some changes at the lab so that nonsense doesn't go on anymore. But this is what happens when you don't watchdog government. This is the kind of shit they do under the cover of the drug war and think it's okay.
Jeff Frazier, from attending just an informational meeting on the Michigan State Police labs, found out that at that time, anyway, 40% of the activity was dedicated to small-time cannabis crimes. Yeah. So it's a big revenue generator. So that is, why it's difficult to get our law implemented properly, because that's a strong, influential force that sits there.
The Delta 8 thing could really be an issue on a national basis, because there are many states that have already started hemp programs, because really it's now federally legal for them to do so. So this could potentially affect millions of people already with hemp in the ground, but for next year's crop, it could significantly impact that. Now, my understanding is that it's just a proposed rule at this point. It's not a finalized regulation, but that these type of proposals are usually just rubber stamp adopted at the authority level. So stuff's happening all around. The system doesn't like change, and it is rejecting change in any possible way it can, including not allowing hemp to be brought to market as a fully fledged product until the agribusiness has their hooks into that sucker. Monsanto.
Give me a minute. I'm going to try and get Kyle back on.
That's one of the reasons we have to be vigilant. We have to continue to watch out, because if we stop paying attention, the bad people get to do their stuff in secret. One of the reasons why we have an Open Meetings Act, one of the reasons why we have the Freedom of Information Act, is to make sure that government agents are working with full transparency. You know why we need those rules? Because if we don't have rules, they won't act in full transparency. They like doing things in secret, so there's no consequence.
So yeah, like what happened a couple of weeks ago, where that guy said he wanted to take away the home grows again, and then he promptly took his proposal back. I feel like they're just testing the waters to see where we're at and how far and how quick we're willing to jump.
Some of them are just so ignorant that they think that stuff like that's a good idea too. And they're so uneducated on what's going on. Unfortunately,
that's an even harder pill to swallow for me, man. That's sad.
It's fucked up, really. Like, if you're in the legislature, typically when there's an issue going on, very few of them take the time to investigate it themselves. They rely on a small group who have decided to take up the issue and work on it, and then take a recommendation from them. That's why we get really stupid laws passed quite often, because the lawmakers don't take the time to well, it's obviously some do, many do, but there's a huge issue with many who do it that way. And so
Man.
the information they get is as good as how that small group decided to think through the issue. So there's another issue that seems to be coming. I was thinking about this on, Rick in a second to describe the upcoming events from the Democratic Cannabis Caucus. And while thinking about some of that stuff, I realized in some conversation with people and Michael Comorn amidst others, that DeRuyter decision that we talked about on here, the Michigan Supreme Court, created a scenario that determined that the locals just have to be reasonable when they decide how to allow caregivers to operate within the community, which means that, what is reasonable,
It's subjective.
yeah, and each one would have to be challenged, and in the 1,700 communities, ultimately. So it's kind of a weird ruling in that respect. But some communities are interpreting that as they have the ability to ban caregiving. And Michigan Municipal League seems to be supporting that idea. And so there's some efforts to start doing that around the state now too, and that's a problem.
Any particular cities that have begun that you know of, Jamie?
There is. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, though. In part of the discussion, one was referred to. I'll figure that out. Or
I mean, is there a list of these politicians, man? Has somebody assembled all these names? Because, like, man, I'm pretty sure me and Berg can win them over. We just roll up some fucking funk and pull up on them.
Yeah, you need them to add the delivery and manufacture to the expungement law. Start off with that one. That'd be cool.
Visit in their home district, not Lansing. That'll be more effective. Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, man, this doesn't even have to be like a Democrat Republican thing, man. This is a people thing. This is a people issue. Like, drop the shit.
We've been trying to convince them of that for a very, very long time. And oftentimes they saw it as a drug issue, and when it stopped being a drug issue, then it was a money issue. Can we monetize? How can we make the most for the state? How can the state benefit more than the people in this instance?
Yeah,
and
that's where I got a problem. Been a money issue.
Yep, that's it. It stopped being about helping us out. So Jamie mentioned a couple things coming up from the Michigan Democratic Party. This Friday from 2 to 3:30, the Michigan Democratic Party Cannabis Caucus will be hosting a live Facebook broadcast featuring the Attorney General, Dana Nessel. We'll have her on for an hour and a half. We'll be asking her some questions up front. Then we'll be taking questions from our live audience. You can participate by submitting your question through the Facebook chat if you are online at that particular time. You can find that on the Michigan Democratic Party's Cannabis Caucus Facebook page, again this Friday at 2. And then next week, September 3rd, we'll have another Facebook live broadcast from the Cannabis Caucus Facebook page, this time featuring 3 progressive prosecutors, prosecutor candidates in Ingham, Washtenaw, and Oakland counties who are very pro-cannabis, who deserve your votes, and we'd like to have them interviewed now that they've made it past their primary. The Ingham County prosecutor candidate is currently the prosecutor in Ingham County, but to change prosecutors in Oakland County to a more cannabis-friendly person, Colin MacDougall, that will be hugely significant. As Jamie mentioned earlier, not really a big fan of Jay Coop. Not so much Jessica Cooper. So she lost her primary. She's out. Now it's Colin MacDougall versus the Republican nominee. This is an important one because prosecutors are the gatekeepers to the jails. If they refuse to prosecute certain kinds of crimes, those people don't go to jail. If they choose to adopt a more reasonable attitude towards cannabis, then you have a Genesee County, then you have a Washtenaw County situation, and that's what we want everywhere in Michigan. And Oakland County would be big to flip because they've been so harsh for so long. So that'll be an important one, and that's September 3rd. Jamie, do you recall what time that broadcast is taking place, sir? You're on mute, sir.
5:30 to 7.
He's reading some lips. I think it's something like that, 5:30 to 7 or to 7:30.
You were interpreting beard movements. Yeah. No, that's good. So we're talking about really giving the average Joe access to decision makers, people who make those calls. Do I put this guy in jail? Do I not put this guy in jail? And with the Attorney General, we have a list of questions that are already pretty exhaustive, but everybody's got different issues, things that we couldn't even think about that are still very relevant and valid questions to ask the AG. And there, of course, there are some things that are beyond her ability to control, but it's still good to ask, because if that's the case, sometimes she needs to be able to say that for people to understand it.
She can be influential, and she can write opinions that don't necessarily carry conclusive weight, but that are very helpful. And there's things we can ask her to do to help out with some things.
We've seen the previous Attorney General submit, Jamie, amicus briefs in certain cases that tried to influence the outcome of that case.
Hey, so that's one of the things I'd like to ask her. It reminds me, Bill Schuette didn't do much. For his first year in office, he spent a lot of his time working against the new Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. And all of his opinions are fucked up in one way or another. In some cases, new laws have kind of like muted them out, but there are still some things standing that I think it would behoove us to ask Dana to revisit and review or possibly reverse some of those opinions.
It's possible for her to issue an opinion that says, I'm now rescinding the opinion that was contained in number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So she could make a clarification of law by taking away Schuette's bad deeds. He had some really stupid things he wrote about. Some really bad ideas.
I mean, quite obviously not interpreted broadly or liberally as supposed to, not using plain language. The political direction he chose to go in was obvious, and there was no real hiding that. He was in opposition to what we were doing, and he used his power to be an obstacle.
And again, we have a real good reason to diss Bill Schuette. So, there's a little bit of bias here on my part, a little bit of bias probably on Jamie's part when it comes to Schuette, because he actively sought the demise of our businesses, ourselves, and our loved ones. But objectively, if you look at it from an outsider's perspective, he was fucked up. I mean, take away our own personal experiences and what he did to me in Chesterfield Township and everything else.
Things he started continued up until days ago, as far as prosecution goes in the cannabis world.
The very last case under Schuette was dismissed, or was settled, not dismissed, that would be incorrect. It was settled for a much, much lesser offense and a $1 penalty. And Jamie, what's the name of that defendant?
Daryl Berry. He's
Berry.
still trying to get some of his property back, and there were issues with that. The whole thing was kind of a mess, but it is awesome that it's finally over.
Jamie, I saw a great post from Camoran with Daryl Berry up in Genesee County where it seemed like they won their appeal to get all of his property back from the judge. So maybe that was resolved. I saw that on Facebook.
I hope so. I've recently heard some pretty stupid things about all that went down, but I hope that is the case for sure.
Yep. And again, there are just some issues that are being conducted on a local or a county level that the state prosecutor just does not have the ability to change. I think we're getting really close to the end of our program here, or do we have some time? We've got half an hour or so. All right. Good.
Jamie, can you let Kyle in? It won't let me because I think it's your waiting room or something. I don't know.
Jamie's on mute. Let Kyle in, Jamie.
Jamie, let that fool in here.
I know.
Oh,
Jamie just likes to
Jim
keep people
too.
dangling. It's Jim Salame. We expected Kyle, and it's Jim.
It said that Kyle just texted me. I saw him and I was clicking admit, and he would just like disappear, and then it would just disappear, and he would reappear, and I'd say admit, and it said, "This is Jamie's waiting room." And
I bet Jamie's rating room smells funny. He just seems like the kind of guy who has,
I don't know. It's weird when I'm the Zoom host. It just keeps playing weird shit on me.
I think he didn't want to answer that question I asked him, but we'll see.
So
we
Jim,
kind of got the answer eventually to that.
I think so. By piecemeal, 60 joints. It was a small load. They got rid of it in a day or two. And nobody returned any unused joints they had already purchased.
So what, 60 joints is like what, 2 ounces?
I mean, I think probably a gram a piece, so a little more than 2 ounces.
I was calling it
close to
27.
close to that for sure. Around there, yeah. And they sold out a day, and nobody returned any.
Yep.
Nobody's been sick, and it's unclear whether or not a health report on the person who's accused of doing it was ever released to anybody, which I think should be a part of this process. I mean,
Jim Salame, you didn't get your hands on any of those pre-licked cannabis joints distributed through the MRA process, did you?
he was not for lack of trying, though.
Yeah, no, not me.
He was trying to.
It's pretty disgusting, obviously. Some could argue that once you let it on fire, though, I don't know, like that part is clean.
Yeah. I mean, we pretty much burn off all the bacteria before we inhale the smoke, I would like to think, but who knows? So it's an interesting time that we're living in. Things that we never really gave a crap about, like who licked the joint that I'm about to smoke, now becomes paramount. You know, it's crazy
like-
things that we care about now.
It's like the story we talked about last night with the bugs in the cannabis.
Yep.
You know, yeah, they just burn up. It's no harm. But when you think about it, it's pretty icky.
So the story I told last night on Medical Mondays is about Ontario. There was a cannabis distributor in Ontario that was using beneficial insects, little bugs that kill the big bugs, which is a great idea. Except that little bugs die and they stay on the cannabis buds. And then when you sell the cannabis buds to the people, we open up the bag, we look at this, and we see dead bugs, and we're like, fuck you. So somebody who didn't know anything about cannabis and the cannabis industry decided it would be a great idea to use these beneficial insects in order to kill the big ones. And when confronted by cannabis consumers about this, what Roeche said is exactly what their response was. They're just little bugs. They're beneficial. You can burn them up. It doesn't bother anything. You just don't know anything about cannabis or the cannabis consumers if you think that's going to be an acceptable answer to our community.
And like that's kind of what I feel is going on there, because like anybody knows, like you can just make like some little sugar water. There's definitely recipes on the internet for blunt glue or what have you. So come on, it's not new technology. Gumming the end of a cigarette paper is very old. We should be not licking them anymore. You should want to lick them if you're doing production.
No, that's gross. Your mouth would be horrible after a short time. When I was at Art Van Furniture as a manager, we would encourage our salespeople to write thank you notes to the people that made big furniture purchases from them. And we had a rule. You did not lick the thank you notes. You used a little sponge and water, and that was it, because some people were germaphobes, and they wouldn't touch it if they thought that you had actually licked it. So even back then, before COVID, we knew it was a bad idea. Now, just seems kind of silly on a corporate level to put your license at risk for something like that. Bad training.
Yay.
Well, everybody's aware of like passing a joint in a circle. Sometimes a great little deal would be to put it between your fingers and hit it from your fist.
Right.
But even now, that seems like that can pass COVID pretty easily.
You know, it's like jump right to like smoke your own joint as much as.
Well, yeah.
Chuck Remit. In our industry, Chuck was famous. Whenever he would get together in a circle, he had an abundance of cannabis, so he would hand everybody a joint to smoke. So
mainly for driving in the car, so you don't see stuff being passed around.
that took place. That actually is a real story. But Chuck is a very generous host. So when you come to his home for a 420 event, as we did many times, typically there's a big glass jar with a bunch of doobies in it, and that's what's expected. So we call it Chuck Reminute when you smoke your own joint like that.
People say Jamaican style.
That's true. Yeah.
Like Chuck Reminute.
I think you just like to say Reminute, regardless of the word Chuck or not.
That's part of it for sure.
So, I mean, we are a dynamic industry. We were talking earlier, Jim, about some potential changes to hemp laws on a federal level with Delta 8 and some of the other things that are going on. I mean, all of us are paying attention to the political situation right now in COVID, but there are all these other changes and all these subtle differences that are taking place while we're watching the shiny object that's dancing in front of us. You know, the barker is shuttling your wallet out of the back. So we have to be cautious and keep our mind open to all the different things going on right now and not just focus on the presidential election coming up, which is so easy to do.
I agree. and you know, hopefully the administration does change, and you know, just like the last administration came in and flipped all the things that Barack Obama had done, it'll be the same thing. Just be a lot of legwork to do a lot of these things that are just compiling upon themselves.
And I think that some of the things that need to be undone go beyond the cannabis industry. I think we're talking about restoring the EPA, restoring the national parks, getting us back into the Paris Accords, participating in the global effort to stop planetary demise through global warming. And I think
Handing over sensitive information to our enemies.
yeah. Or how about not hiring idiot friends of yours to have key cabinet positions because, you know, they're just yes guys and they tell you whatever you want to hear. But in reality, there's a lot that can be done. The human race is an amazing species. We can do great things if we're united. But if we are constantly at war with each other, whether it's verbal war on the internet or whether it's real war in Belarus, if we're constantly at war, we're not working together to make the world a more livable place. And right now, for a lot of people in the world, it's not a livable place. That's a downer. I certainly brought the whole show straight down the tubes now,
Well,
boy.
I should hope that, you know, what this leads to, this huge, like, you know, one side against the other fight that we seem to be encountering without much compromise, is eventual compromise, because I think we'll get sick of handling things this way and eventually, you know, find that the only way we can progress is to start to see things the other side. Unfortunately, it might take a little while for that to happen, but I think that would be the next progressive step.
I'd like to see elections be evolved. They haven't caught up with technology. We have the ability to do some electronic surveying, electronic elections gathering, so that we don't have to have so many opportunities for people to cheat or to become sick or to just fail to participate because it's a rainy day. We know that happens. We know the weather has a lot to do with turnout on vote day. So we can do things better. And hopefully this is an impetus for us to change towards a more positive movement. One thing we got to start doing is not locking up kids that are trying to cross the border with their parents. That's just atrocious. What we did in Mexico was just unconscionable. When future generations of human beings look back on that time, they will say, how could they? Who were those monsters? Again, I'm bringing the show down. What the fuck, man? I gotta smoke some.
Yeah, not real exciting.
This indica is
Yeah,
really
man.
getting to me, man. Shit.
Light some shit up, Rick, man.
I'm about to do that right now.
You're harshing everybody's vibe.
Really.
Imagine, everybody in here, imagine if we got rid of Republicans and Democrats, like the whole party system. Then everybody be a piece of shit. They couldn't argue. Be like, hey, well, that guy's a piece of shit, and he's on that side. Well, our piece of shit's better, and he's orange. You know,
that sucks. That sucks that happens every time. It reverts to that. You think there's some promise for a little while, and then that's where it heads, no matter what. It seems like can't get over the hump. You're right, man. It would be.
Well, and let's talk. We're talking about labels here, right? I mean, if there were no Republicans and Democrats, there'd still be people across America with a big difference of opinions about different things, but it would be one less label that they could be used to
you do like a ranked thing. Some type of structure.
Well, I mean, I don't like, and I don't get how we're supposed to have choice, and yet there's only an either or. That's not really much of a choice.
You get the ability to choose between the options I give you. That's not freedom.
Popular vote doesn't mean shit. That's what's fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, we have the Electoral College.
Yeah,
it's true, and it resulted a couple times in people getting elected without winning the majority of votes. But it has its supporters and it has its detractors. So.
Well, Bush Gore
can't go anywhere anytime soon.
Bush Gore was decided by the Florida Supreme Court, who decided to stop counting ballots when it really looked like Al Gore might take Florida if they continue to count absentee
And then the
ballots.
U.S. Supreme Court, which is the final decision.
Right.
And in fact, when Al Gore gave his concession speech, usually that person says, "The people have spoken. I lost." You know, in this case, he says, "The Supreme Court has spoken, and I lost," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
That was a historical difference in the address.
But when
He didn't fight, man.
look at it this way, though, the Trump-Clinton fight was just down to a couple of million votes. The Gore-Bush thing was down to even less than that. Some of the biggest elections in the United States of America have been almost evenly divided amongst Republicans and Democrats, or people casting those two ballots. We don't have a clear majority one way or the other. America is in conflict. It's
getting those independents and fence sitters to go one way or the other. That's the ultimate thing that tips the scales.
right. And you know what does it? This right here, cannabis. More people voted for cannabis than voted for mayor in the city of Detroit. More people voted in favor of marijuana legalization than voted in favor of Gretchen Whitmer. So cannabis is more popular than elected officials in almost every instance.
I know why.
What do you guys think of this new measure to fight COVID-19? I think they're calling it convalescent plasma, where they get blood from people who've survived it and inject it into people to boost their immunity.
To give them antibodies from those other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess there's a 35% better survival rate for those who get those treatment.
Here's the thing, though. If you look at, and I saw a big article online from CNN today, the study that they did not have a no antibodies, some antibodies, lots of antibodies program. They had a some antibodies, lots of antibodies program. They had no control group. So they did see an improvement on people that got the convalescent plasma over people that didn't get the convalescent plasma, but there wasn't, or the people got lower doses. It just wasn't conducted in a scientific manner. That's one of the reasons why Fauci is hesitant about it, and some of the other doctors are too. I think what really people are worried about is that Trump wanted to have a big medical success to tout at the Republican National Convention this week, so they pushed this convalescent plasma up in order for him to be able to make that announcement and to do a victory lap while he's on national TV saying, "I found the answer. I know I said it was hydrochloroquine, and I know I said it was bleach and injected into your lungs, but whatever, right? This is my new answer." And it didn't follow procedure because they wanted to advance it quickly. That's bad.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way too. Like it was just the latest, fad in anti-COVID technology. And they just wanted to have something else to say.
I want to believe that they've got a solution out there. There are vulnerable people in my community and my family that I love, and I want them to be protected. But snake oil salesmen exist in 2020, and they wear lab coats, and they have business cards, and they have websites.
And the Russians have a vaccine out.
And they get big kickbacks.
Yeah.
No, I mean, bro, like there's too many of us. Listen to how we're talking and listen to how many of us are talking this way. I think it's going to go away when enough people are gone to where it becomes an economic boom on the upswing.
Isn't it a shame, Roach, that sometimes we don't take action until a certain number of people die, or until something costs so much money that we have to pay attention to it?
Yeah.
We devote ourselves to money so much that, like the representative in Texas said that he believes his constituents would rather die than create a bad economy.
Well, yeah, no, it's about to be the greatest of times. And there's going to be a bunch of vacant jobs. There's going to be a bunch of housing available. It's going to be great.
So you're saying this
all kinds of real estate up for fucking.
So what I hear you saying is, COVID is like Thanos, right? He just goes, And then half the people fucking croak, right?
Yes. Well,
I'm hoping
1%.
it's not like that. I'm hoping we didn't lose half.
Yeah, but then there's like a portal thing that happens and everybody comes back.
Yeah,
what?
no.
It was more
It's not
complicated.
happening like that.
No,
Unless you're at Coachella, they can make a hologram of you.
Captain Marvel is not going to swoop back in to save us from outer space. No.
No.
My concern is there's a lot of industry out there that's going to go away. We know that small business is the engineer. It's the real fire behind the economic engine of Michigan. And when a lot of small businesses go under, I think a lot of those people don't recover. I think that they stop providing jobs and they just go bankrupt and they slink away to their home and they don't reinvest. They don't start a new business because they don't have any money to do that. I'm worried.
I don't think we've seen exactly what effects this is even going to have. We won't know for a while, I don't think. And it's going to be, I think it's going to definitely get worse before it gets better. But, I think we got to stay very positive and kind of plan on that happening.
Remember the greatest generation, they say, the generation of Americans that survived the Great Depression, right? That's what we're looking to be. We are the people that survive. We're the ones that endure and come out on the other side and continue. So that's our role. And we have to accept it and charge forward. We can't shrink from the task. Too many people are looking to us for leadership.
And you know what's going to make that a little bit easier to bear?
I'm on that program.
For sure.
Ray Reyes, from a musician standpoint, you've lost all your gigs. Essentially, you're having to come up with new ways to do it. Laith Al-Sadi was on our show just last week complaining about the same thing too. You had to make adjustments to your life just like everybody else, but perhaps it's more dramatic for a guy like yourself who was looking to perhaps do a touring gig in Australia with ICP and had, potential recording gigs and other tour dates you were going to do.
COVID just definitely screwed it all up. So yeah, I mean, what am I? It's kind of funny because it's to the point like, wow, if I needed a couple of extra bucks, things were a little tight, I could always grab my guitar and just go do some busking. Ann Arbor was great. Certain spots in Detroit were great too.
So the corner right outside of my place is pretty good for making some extra cash.
Yeah, and so we don't even make that kind of cash. But yeah, I mean, it's a question now. It's like, wow, if somebody were to even tip me a couple of bucks, like here's a perfect example. I was did a gig, first gig in a while, played outdoors at Weber's restaurant. Weber's a hotel in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they were doing like this outdoor brunch thing, and people were tipping, and it was cool. But you, of course, because of all of this scenario, you're like, wow, man, should I even pick up that $1? Of course I'm going to pick it up. But the fact that I even have to have that question in my mind brings forth the serious reality of just how silly this thing is.
There's a lot of weird new shit that sucks and is a strain to have to keep in mind because it's not as it used to be.
Hugs. Remember getting hugs from people when you would meet them, right? Oh, I haven't seen you in so long. Come here. That shit's kind of gone away.
Yeah, it's kind of like elbow bump. Yo,
I turned
what's up?
many attempted handshakes into an elbow bump this last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some people were comfortable with it though, and people are dealing with this in their own way. But there's a level of, responsibility and risk associated with that behavior. So.
Conducting yourself in one way is totally your right, but when you are around other people, there are certain social courtesies and social graces that we observe. just like we do with all the rest of the stuff that, involves not picking your nose and not, sneezing, onto someone else's face. And there's just things that we don't do, just things and
We could,
There's
we
some
could
people-
attach to our arms, just to our elbows, just an arm on each side. So when we do go into bump, we're actually hugging each other with arms.
cottage invention, as seen on TV.
Yeah.
Ronco, the elbow hugger,
Hugless hug.
right?
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, but like, oh, go ahead, C Murder.
I was gonna say, like, I know a lot of people who are like really big huggers, and like they are having like a really hard time right now.
Roach, what do you got?
And I don't give them hugs.
It's another unfortunate change in all this, man.
Yeah, no, I just think it's a weird time because, like, evolutionarily speaking, picking our nose is kind of what's gotten us here. At least as kids, because it has helped humans build this immune system. So now, where we have like antibacterial everything, and now we have the plague, basically, I think like it's gonna weaken humans if we keep this up for like an extended period of time.
When you said eat this up and pick your nose in the same sentence, it kind of grossed me out. But
That's what has to happen.
the
Picking
idea
it
here
is not enough. Picking it is not enough for it to help us. You
gotta go full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle. That what you're saying? Oh no, that's
Or flick it.
That's a bad way to go. So when you go to a doctor and they give you antibiotics, they're cautious not to give you too many antibiotics and not to mix too many things up, because as a human being, you can develop resistance to a particular antibiotic. And, I don't see any difference between that stuff and the stuff we put on our hands, and the stuff we put in our hair, and the stuff we put in our teeth when we brush them. I mean, all of that stuff's getting into our body at some point or another. So are we making ourselves weaker and less capable of fighting off virus?
Fluoride in the water helps us.
Jim is nodding his head yes vigorously. Jim, tell us your thoughts about that.
Well, no, I mean, you guys are talking about it. You guys all agree, it sounds like. Yeah, I think the cleaner we are, the less susceptible we are to other foreign, things that affect us or build up our immunity. And, every now and then we should like have a handshake party or a high five party where everyone just kind of shares it all,
I'm just gonna go around.
Lick the
spitting.
hand and then high five.
Maybe
Well, no
some butt
boogers,
action.
no licking or spitting. Just, just
I'll just
the old
start
days. You
spitting.
got some oily hands, bam.
Picking each other's nose, Roach.
That would be good.
Ooh, I don't condone that cross nose picking. That's bad.
Teabag.
Didn't get it. So I guess the reality is, even though we're giving all this advice, women still please shave your underarms. God damn. Oh, it's so bad. Oh, it's the worst. So
That might deserve a nasty letter from somebody, man. I'm not sure.
I'll take it. I'll take
Some
it.
group.
Man,
Yeah, but I mean, I can't even go to the
woman
beach.
decides not to shave her armpits, you got to respect that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, it's not like I carry a razor.
I'm with Jamie, for the record.
What was that, Jim? You said
Having it's like three vaginas when you have. It's like three vaginas when you have the hairy armpits on a girl.
you should have seen Berg's look on his face just a second ago. That was great.
I've never.
Triple the pleasure. If she's got a mustache, 4. Yeah.
Jamie's quick to accept that premise right there, Ray. So you guys have a website in common, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like three vaginas.
Dr.
Go ahead. Go to town.
Yeah. All right. That's one you can keep for yourself, Ray. I'm just gonna say it. Just gonna lay it out there.
Just thought it wasn't. Weren't getting enough stupid shit on this conversation. Here we go.
Yeah, it might be better that it was garbled there for a second. Inviting people to other people's armpit vagina.
Calvin, did you intentionally Kyle Ray for a second there? Is that what you did? Like you intentionally mangled Kyle's audio this entire time, you mean guy?
No, I don't know what the hell is going on. It wouldn't
Well,
let me. I don't know. There's
well, I couldn't let him in either. We are. Well, it still was a connection issue. I tried to join. You could see it.
yeah, I can see
But,
it.
we need to get him back on, though. There's still more to talk about. Feel bad we left off with a broken conversation about the recall of the joints, basically. But there's a lot of interesting stuff there to revisit, so we'll do that. It was technology. I don't think we've been through a show where it's been flawless yet. So.
But if Kyle had been on the phone, then we would not have gotten to the subject of nose picking and its evolutionary place in the development of humanity.
For sure.
One
It's
door.
true.
One door
Made a
closes.
good point.
Okay, so we really miss Kyle. Is that what we're saying? Okay.
That's what it's coming down to.
Kyle.
The reality is there's so many different ways to look at cannabis and cannabis law reform. We had a discussion today with a person who believed that it was impossible to say that the Democrats have done more for cannabis law reform than Republicans, which I vigorously disputed. There's just so many ways here in Michigan where the Republican Party has just put their foot on the brake pedal of cannabis law reform. On a statewide level and on a local level too. If you look at the people who are obstructing adult use centers in Detroit and better laws for consumers in Detroit, it's the Republican conservatives in the city of Detroit that run the churches and some of the business entities. They're the ones leaning on city council to put a kibosh on it. When Jamie and I go to speak to local communities across the state, that's who we encounter as our resistance, are the local Republican groups and their entities. It's in my mind, it's pretty clear when I look at the two. I see a difference between Democrats and Republicans on this issue, but some people just don't notice a difference in party. They just see hate.
Well, right, there are more Democrats that support the Republicans, but there are contingencies of both. That support or oppose.
Yeah. So, and it's not like we're trying to assign a hero and villain status to any one particular group or the other, but the rhetoric that's coming out, the things that are being said nowadays by people in the run up to this very important presidential election, they're going to get less truthful. They're going to get more vicious. They're going to engage in revisionist history, as Jamie mentioned, and they're just going to get downright mean. And we have to be prepared for the next 2.5 months to really just be ugly. And how are we going to personally handle that? Are we going to engage in every fight, or as an individual, are we going to block and ignore and unfriend people that are just so persistent that we can't make reason with them? How are you going to handle it?
Hey, however that manifests itself, it's going to be extremely strange in a year. See what I mean? In a year that is already, beyond any other as far as extremely intensely strange things going on.
Roach, you jumped up to the computer. What's up, man? What's on your mind?
Oh no, I said we're gonna respond with memes.
That's the least intelligent way to have any kind of an argument. Are these, anybody can create a meme, and there's no context, there's no explanation, there's no quotes. They're just,
Yeah, but I feel like at the end of the day,
Yeah.
man, if we end up just laughing at each other, then so be it.
But
Better than the stuff that's been going on.
Some people are willing to do that, maintain their position, but never really take it to a super bitter, place.
But at the end of the day, I don't see people laughing with each other. I see people throwing beer bottles at each other.
Does get there quite often too.
Yep.
Some of the
If we
stuff.
just agreed with everything I said, that wouldn't happen.
It's true. Got a good point there.
Instead of QAnon, it'll be Jamie Anon. So, except he won't be very anonymous because we say his name, so it wouldn't be very helpful. So, Q Jamie.
Janonymous.
Androgynous Janonymous. Okay. Okay. Truth in advertising. Anyway,
Fluid.
no. So we're facing a lot of chaos, a lot of different forces that are weighing on our community in this crazy year. and then throw COVID in on top of it too. So I think we're all blessed that cannabis is an industry that's kind of been resistant to this whole roller coaster ride. But we'd be silly to think that our industry is not going to have some kind of ups and downs. Look at the potential fluctuation in the supply chain that's about to come out for the rest of the year. I have an article that just talks about, in fact, hang on, I'll bring it up right now and I will speak about it.
And then we can
Price.
pretty much start ending after you get done going through talking about this.
Okay. Michigan wholesale medical marijuana prices fall on flood of caregiver product. Now that was from Marijuana Business Daily. So they're just using numbers published by the Marijuana Regulatory Agency. So we had a challenging supply chain situation in the first place. And then there's this impending deadline for the end of caregiver product in the marketplace in September. So all of the distribution centers and processors and cultivators made massive purchases of caregiver product before the deadline was over, and that's had a big effect on the price of cannabis. But we know that when adult use comes in a big way, there's not enough infrastructure established to be able to supply that market adequately. We see that with the medical and adult use markets right now, that one sucks off of the other, and there's not enough supply to go around. There's a lot of turbulence ahead. And then toss onto it potentially the legislature making some changes to the MRTMA or the MMFLA or the MMMA, and that just adds even more confusion. And that's all built on a huge cake of distrust the citizenry has of government, because government's been such a bad actor over the decades when it comes to cannabis issues. So if you really want people to buy into the system, we have to show them the best face forward, and I'm not sure that best face is what we're showing right now.
Sucks off, confusion, turbulence, face.
Did you only pick out sexually related snippets from my conversation, Jamie?
It's just kind of what I heard, right? Just kind of regurgitating the bits and pieces that I picked up.
Not surprise. Well, that's okay. At least it was memorable in one way or another. I guess the important thing, though, is that as leaders, and we all on this call are leaders, we have to keep our heads up. We have to keep a smile going. Even if we disagree with stuff, support people. And if that support means you're trying to burn down the motherfucking house, then do that. But support the people that are trying to do that if that's where your passion is. Folks right now are seeing other industries experience social justice reform and seeing them make progress, and they're wondering how come we're not doing the same thing in the cannabis industry. Maybe we can. Maybe we just need more soldiers.
True. Yeah, that's part of what we kind of want to talk about. We've only indirectly done it. That a lot of the things going on require people getting kind of active again and arranging these types of meetings, like as the Democratic caucus has lined up, and asking the Attorney General directly what's going on with these things. And we need some more of that now.
One way people can participate is the Free Michael Thompson campaign. # Free Michael Thompson on your posts on all your social media. This is a Michigan citizen who's not only incarcerated on a ridiculous amount of time for a ridiculous charge, but he's also now infected with coronavirus. As a prisoner in the system, that means he doesn't get as good a health care as the rest of us do. So we got to pop him out, and it looks like it's a greater opportunity now than ever before. So spread the news and use the # Free Michael Thompson. And look for those phone numbers that we sometimes post on social media to call the parole board and the governor's office to kind of kick them in the butt a little bit to get them to move forward.
So redemption has come on, and that's an issue that they have also taken up, and have had discussions with us, and meaning the caucus and Last Prisoner Project and
Caucus.
And it's just more support, and the more angles that we take, death by 1,000 cuts, as Rick referred to earlier.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. It's some action. There hasn't been the freedom of them yet, but there's been some action.
And every little victory is important. Every time we dismiss a case, there's a cop out there that knows he can't try that again. Every time we have a prosecutor that lets somebody go for almost nothing. There's a system, a justice system that says we have to deprioritize these cases because they're not going anywhere. Every time we tell our story of healing with cannabis to someone who's never heard that before, we open new minds. We're all ambassadors for cannabis, and we have an ongoing mission.
And we ain't gonna stop
Huh.
till we get there.
That's right, yeah. Like the giant tour bus. This is a big old Willie Nelson tour bus of cannabis freedom, and we're all getting high in the back and nobody's driving. Yeah.
So ultimately, we don't have any reason to peel back or give up any ground that we've gained. The caregiver system should always be there if somebody wants to participate in it.
Yep. And be cautious of those people who are trying to claim that they are representative of the group of people. There's some folks out there with some dubious reputations. We talked about Steve Linder today, but there's other folks out there that might be trying to start what seem to be charitable organizations with perhaps nefarious purpose. So we'll keep you informed when we discover those things, but be aware that it happens.
So, does anybody want to mention anything before we conclude today's program? Anything with decriminalized nature going on?
Yeah, Jim, you got any updates on events coming up?
Crickets. That's all I hear.
You're on mute.
Standard mute. Yep.
I was going to say that right now, if you're an Ann Arbor resident and you believe that there should be laws, helping people who use entheogenic plants in the city of Ann Arbor, find out who your ward city council representative is and write them a letter in support of the decriminalized nature's language that was sent to city council recently, and send it to the mayor as well. But that's what we need right now. We need to get it on up for vote in the fall before the change of city council happens in November. And we're also asking that people contact their new city council people too, because there's been a big change in Ann Arbor as far as the next wave of city council folk.
So to have it on the ballot in the fall would mean you're prepared with signatures that have been submitted.
No,
now,
I'm sorry,
by now.
up for vote for the city council just to pass it for us. That's what we're hoping.
Okay. I'm sorry. All right.
That's okay.
Hey, Jim, are there any of those folks up for election at this coming November?
Up for election?
Yes, in the council.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't have like all of them on the top of my head, so I'm not going to even speak on it.
Okay.
Primary commonly determines a lot of those positions.
Yeah.
Too. So some people are known who are coming in at this point, probably.
Hey Jim, I got a question for you. Are there any plans to have a decriminalized Detroit?
Well, Colin, can you answer that one too, or do you know? I don't know. I don't
like
think so. Yeah.
I know that like there was talk of it, and there was like a email that I received one time saying decriminalize nature Detroit, but I don't really have. I don't know if anyone's really organized. I know there are people in Detroit that are interested, but yeah, it's just really hard in the city of Detroit, I think. But
are the guys from Motor City Normal interested at all in?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of people are interested. It's just like the only thing is like you have to have somebody like take it on, like gung ho, like full on.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma in Detroit around that.
And like, I mean, Tom Levine was interested. Like, I know there people at the Psychedelic Healing Shack were interested. Yeah, but there's just like no like organized like effort yet. So there, people want there to be. So, but if you know anybody who wants to lead that effort,
You have to be organized, and then somebody,
There you go.
direct it. So if there's somebody's up for that, it could be very well go down.
And it should be a Detroit resident.
Yeah, it needs to be a Detroit resident.
Mm.
And
that's important.
So if you want to do it, or Jamie,
I'll support it.
I'll show you how to do the paperwork.
I don't want to I don't want to take on that. role at this point. I'd much rather serve under Roeche.
Yeah.
Under Roeche.
Hey man, shit can happen. Let's see.
You can
So-
contact Decriminalize Nature, the actual movement, just at decriminalizenature.org. So.
Jamie, are we just about done with the show today?
Just if anybody else has anything to add, that's good. If not, let's close it out, and we'll get Kyle back because I do want to talk to him more and hear more clearly from him what's going on. I appreciate everybody's participation today. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Shelley for showing up earlier. Thanks to Kyle as well.
Ray made it back. Both the Medical Monday cats, Roeche and Berg, with us tonight.
Thanks for
Colin,
having
of
us,
course.
And
I
Deb,
had hosting duties for quite a while. Deb split, but she was with us for most of the show.
castless too. She got her cast off. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Jim struggled to get on, but he hung with us as much as he possibly could. So all good. I appreciate it, and
Joined us late too. Yep.
see everybody next week. See for
See you
sure.
next week, guys. Good
Go
seeing
Medical
you.
Mondays,
Yep.
9:00 on YouTube, and
man.
us next week, same time, same place. Cheers,
Later.
Cabbage.
The business